I want to share a story about my wife's affair with my mother-in-law and me. This memory still haunts me to this day. My name is David and I was 24 years old at the time. I had just graduated from college and got married. My wife, Emily, and I decided to visit her parents' cottage. At the time, my mother-in-law, Catherine, was 47 years old. She was very good-looking, short, pretty, and always impeccably neat. From the first day I met her, I began to sympathize with her. She often stayed at our house, and I would often find her in the bathroom, her presence leaving an impression I couldn't ignore. Emily's parents had a lake house in a quiet rural area. It was a large house in a small town. The surroundings were serene, and the sense of isolation contributed to a sense of intimacy between us over time. The shower, toilet, and utility room were next to the house, surrounded by various shrubs that created a sense of privacy. The shower room was very spacious, and next to it was the utility room, which was under renovation. There was something about the seclusion of the cabin that made it feel like anything could happen there, away from the rest of the world. One day my father-in-law, Robert, and my wife went into town to take care of some business, and my mother-in-law and I had to spend almost 2 days together. In the morning we decided to go to the beach. The weather was clear but very hot. Honestly, it was so hard to lie next to such a beautiful woman that I just stared ahead, lying next to her on the same blanket. The feeling of being so close to her and not being able to fulfill my desires was almost unbearable. I didn't even bother to swim. Instead, I lay on my stomach, mentally imagining various things that I knew I shouldn't have imagined. Catherine suggested I swim a few times, but I kept finding excuses to delay. She was persistent, her voice teasing, but I resisted. After the third time, she probably began to guess the real reason why I didn't want to cool off in the water but preferred to just sit next to her. She said, "Emily's gone and you're a young man and you need this," with a mischievous smile. I pretended, of course, that I didn't know what she was talking about, but her playful tone sent shivers down my spine. Without waiting for my response, with a smile on her pretty face, she turned her head in the opposite direction and, as if unintentionally, moved a little closer to me. "David, put some cream on my shoulders and back, because I'm afraid I'm going to get burned," she asked unexpectedly. The way she looked at me, hiding her eyes behind her sunglasses, made my heart race. She pressed my legs lightly against her waist. The touch was electric and full of unspoken promises. Adrenaline hit my head, and the ringing in my ears made me come to my senses. "Okay," I said, reaching for the tube. I sat down on my knees next to her and squeezed more cream onto the palm of my hand. I began to apply the cream to her back and shoulders, rubbing it thoroughly into her skin. The sensation of my hands on her bare skin was overwhelming. It felt like a task for both of us, more intimate than it should have been. My fingers lingered, and I felt her tense, and then relax under my touch. We lay on the blanket, and even through my sunglasses I could feel her gentle gaze on me, which seemed to penetrate me through and through. She put her right hand on my back and said, "Do you want to go home? It's almost noon, and it's going to be very hot." We got home and I went to take a shower. The heat of the day seemed to increase the tension that was building between us. A few minutes later, Catherine walked in wearing a robe. She smelled of sunscreen and perfume, and she put her hand on my shoulder, and the touch sent shivers down my spine. I turned around and we froze, looking at each other. The silence between us was tense, and when she reached for my lips, she covered them with hers. The kiss was gentle at first, almost hesitant, but then it grew deeper, and all the unspoken tension of the day came rushing out. We were lost in the moment, and the world outside the bathroom ceased to exist. The 2 days we spent together were fantastic and very memorable. We shared not only physical intimacy, but an emotional connection that I had not expected. Those memories still run through my head, vivid and detailed, as if it happened just yesterday. We laughed, talked, and shared things about our lives that neither of us had ever voiced before. After that, when Emily and Robert came back, things went back to normal. We never talked about what had happened, but there were times when our gazes met, and we both understood. If our relationship didn't work out after those days, it was probably for the best. It was a short-lived attraction, nothing more. Still, it's a lifelong memory, and somewhere in the back of my mind, there's still a lingering hope that I'll see that beautiful woman again. I wonder if she feels the same way, if she recalls those stolen moments when no one was looking at us, when we allowed ourselves to give in to the temptation that simmered beneath the surface. Sometimes I replay those moments in my mind, wondering how things might have been different if we had continued this. Would it have continued for a long time? Or would it have burned out, leaving behind only regret? I like to think that what we shared was special, something unique that can't be repeated. It was a fleeting connection that existed in a perfect bubble of time. And while the practical part of me knows it's best left in the past, some part of me still longs for more, longs for the touch of her hand, the sound of her laughter, the warmth of her body next to mine. Those 2 days were more than just an affair. They were a glimpse of something that will never be, but that I will always treasure.